You know, these this built-in music that I get on iMovie, um, there's some groovy tunes in there. I really need to hire someone to. I've got one of my best friends is a very, very talented musician. I need to get him to write me a super cool original intro. Um, I'd love to steal music off the web, but we all know what happens when you do that. You get shut down on YouTube. I just can't believe it. Like copyright infringement. It just what's that all about? Anyway, hey, welcome to another last second live stream. This is Aaron Live. I'm Aaron. It's June 17th already. We're halfway through the month of June. Holy crap, I can't believe it. So I had some stuff to do and I thought, let's do it live. I mean, in reality, I'm doing it live anyway. There's just no one watching. But like now, no, actually, there's a few people watching. But I thought, you know what? Get some video content out there, right? I mean, I've only got like a little over 100 shows, little videos to watch. It's like I gotta keep pushing the content, right? So it's like if I got to draw, I might as well draw live, and that's gosh darn it, that's exactly what I'm doing. I had a request for a couple more sketchbooks. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do those. And then I've got a piece that I'm working on that just might be Luke Cage Hero for Hire. I can't say for sure, but we'll find out shortly if that actually is true. I've also just realized that often what happens when I do these live streams is that these last second live streams is that I'm completely unprepared. I just kind of turn the camera on and start going and then realize, oh, wait a minute. I didn't hook up my other camera and I'm not ready to go, but now I am. Now I hooked it up while I was talking. We call that multitasking in the business. So I am ready to, looks like I'm ready to rock and roll. I've had some suggestions on how to correct my color problems with my camera that aren't unfortunately realistic because of my setup. I can't really I can't currently change my lighting or my where I'm set up at. I mean, I guess I suppose I could if I did a complete overhaul of my studio, but I can't even get my studio cleaned, let alone overhaul it and change stuff around. So we're gonna have to continue to suffer with mediocre color on this second camera while I'm sketching. But you know, I post it anyway later, so on social media, so you can always see the true colors. Let's see who has joined us. Leg Kick is here. How about that? You can always count on Leg Kick. He's on everybody's show all the time. Zane, make it drop in a Benny Hill reference. Zane over in Chicago, he's a big time lawyer, probably lawyering people up right now, and took 5-minute lunch break to check out this. I appreciate it, Zane. Lady Celtic, or is it Celtic Moon, is back with us. Well, Leg Kick says, I see you're on and I pop in for support. Hope you're doing well. I am doing well, and thank you for popping in for support because, gosh darn it, unlike, excuse me, unlike mega online stars like Ethan Van Sciver and other people, I need all the support I can get. I don't have 10,000, 100,000 followers. So let's see here. We got, there's some eyes are on me, apparently. Jeff Potts, someone streaming while I'm not, but getting my lunch. How did that happen? It's all in the timing. It's all in the timing, Jeff. Not being prepared yet. I'd be slapping myself continually because I am never prepared. Leg Kick says he's looking forward to the professionals, and you know what you should be. That's tonight, actually. So I'm going to double live streaming, man. 2 in 1 day. What am I, out of my mind? So yeah, so we're doing the professionals tonight, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think we're talking about favorite crime movies or something like that. Okay, not sure. That's right. You'll get there, Aaron. In another 20 years, I'll have 100,000 followers. So, excuse me, I'm very excited about that. So anyway, first things first, as I reach off camera, I got one of these. Actually, I got two of these to do, and I'm going to do them. That's very interesting. Who's about to rock art? We salute you. That's a little AC/DC reference for you old timers like me. Anyway, some of you may recognize this book. Maybe all of you do. It's Raw Imagination. It's 20 years of sketches by me. It's a hardcover. Look at that. It has a spine, and there's printing on the spine. That's how you know it's a real book. And there's art on the back cover, too. I didn't forget about the back cover. And I offer these for $25 a piece. And also, if you like a sketch inside, they're $45. And it's $5 shipping, which I think is a pretty good deal. Of course, that's shipping media mail, which is relatively cheap. So I like to take advantage of that because I don't want to, you know, pound you guys with shipping costs. Although I think this is actually a pretty good deal on the book. $25 is probably about average, but to get a sketch inside for $45, that's just next level. So we'll let that scroll for a minute here. It is. Look at, see, Tony agrees with me. It's a great deal. Tony knows. I only offer great deals in this show. Thank you, Tony. Where do you order the book? What is that scrolling across the bottom? Actually, you just send me money and on PayPal, but make sure when you do send me money, or if you do send me money, that you put in the comments or the message box, excuse me, you put in the message box why you're sending me money. Okay, so you say like, Aaron, I'd like one of your sketchbooks, just the signed and number edition. And then, of course, you'd send me $30. That's $25 for the book, $5 for shipping. Or if you wanted to sketch inside, you'd say sketchbook with storm on the inside, for example. And then I know what to draw in the book and why you sent me money. But then you also must include your shipping address, because I can't send you the book if I don't know where to send it to. So those are the two keys. If you PayPal me money, tell me why you're sending me the money and tell me where I can send whatever you're sending me the money for after I'm done with it. It seems simple, but you'd be amazed at how many people will send me money and I'm like, what is this for? So that's simply how it works. I get notifications, obviously, when stuff shows up in my PayPal account. I go and see, I do the book, ship it out. And before you know it, it's in your hands and you're going, wow, what a deal did I just get? So anyway, you know, Mike, I agree with you, Mike. You can just send me money because I'm awesome. I appreciate that. Mike's a good guy living out there in Minnesota. Has brokered me on a few shows out in Minnesota. Brokered, is that the right term? I think he did kind of broker the deal between me and there's no deal. It's not like you have to pay me to come to a show. All you have to do is like fly me out and put me up and I'll come to your show. But anyway, he took care of that for a couple shows in Minnesota that he's a part of. Hyper Kaiju, he wants to know what's up, and I want to know the temperature outside. I don't know. That's a pretty lame joke. That's like a really bad dad joke. No, you haven't missed anything important yet. Just me pushing my sketchbooks, because that's what I'm about to draw in right now. Yeah, there is that's true, Jeff. There is a bit of a mystery involved when I get money for no reason. But I'm not a guy that would, you know, like there's a few guys who've like put up Kickstarters or Indiegogos and taking the money and never produced the product. I kind of have sort of a moral center that it keeps me from doing stuff like that. So someone sends me money and I don't know why, I get very disturbed, and then I can't just take someone's money if I don't know why. So then, you know, so it's always helpful if I actually do know why you're sending me money. See, Mike, look at that's gracious. He was very happy to host me in Minnesota the couple times I went to a show. Although I was shocked at the humidity. That really surprised me. But it makes sense being so close to these giant lakes out there. But it didn't. I didn't really register with me that Minnesota would be a muggy place to visit, but it is. So there you go. Well, good. Tony wants to know, are the sketches in the books penciled or inked or just whatever you're in the mood for? No, they're inked. I produce quality for you. Thing is, if it's just penciled, it's going to smudge all over. I mean, I don't erase the pencil, but all pencil just would encourage smudging on the pages, and we really don't want that. Does the shipping change if you're not? Yes, it does. It changes grotesquely, quite frankly, because they don't really have a media mail option for international shipping. So you get to pay like first class international shipping, and the books are sort of heavy. They weigh about 1 pound 5 ounces when they're packaged and ready to go. So I think generally speaking, you're in that $25 to $30 range for shipping. But you'd have to email me or message me through Facebook, or I don't know if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook right now, but you'd have to message me and I would double check the shipping cost, but they're generally right around that $25 range if you're in Europe. So let's see. If someone's having random money, I would assume they were in the mob and want a favor sometime in the future. Maybe I've been watching too much for Sopranos lately. I think, that whole favor thing, it makes me a little uncomfortable because you never know exactly what that favor might be. I remember the beginning of The Godfather when that guy's daughter had been assaulted by some guys and he wanted Brando to step in and, take care of it for him. And he finally agreed by, kissing his ring and bowing down to him and calling him Godfather and everything. And then he said, at some point I may come to you and ask for a favor. That day may never come, but well, the favor was that Sonny, his son, got shot up, and so he wanted the mortician. This guy was a mortician to fix him up and make him look nice, which, that's what the guy did anyway. So it wasn't like, anything that was going to get him in trouble necessarily. But I'd be a little skeptical about making a deal with the mobsters about, a favor that I might owe them. Jermaine says he's in Canada. I'm off the top of my head, I'm guessing it's going to be around $25 for shipping. I'm just guessing. I'm trying to remember the last one I shipped up to Canada. But you can go to the USPS website, and if you don't want to wait for me, I'd have to check, but I think it's probably $25. Yeah, I'm trying to think of Michael. I'm trying to think of what I've done for you that you don't always know what I want. You don't always know why I want what I want, though. Yeah, I try to think. Michael must. I'm trying to remember. I'm racking my brain now, trying to remember what I've done for Michael that was odd, but I'm sure it's. I'd have to go back and look. Warren's always pushing Kit because he's the letterer on Kit Carter, and I should be pushing her too. I just, I don't know. I've been so caught up in doing commissions and other things and trying to get this sort of Kickstarter / Indiegogo, whatever it's going to end up being, project ready to launch, that I just have not done any Kit Carter for a while, and I really do need to. I've got one that's laid out. I just need to finish it. Well, I'll make a concerted effort to get that stuff done. It's weird when you're not working regularly in mainstream comics, like I haven't been for a few months. It's just weird. You have time on your hands, but at the same time, you're like, you don't know what to do with that time. And so you end up being less productive, trying to figure out what you should be doing than you are when you've actually got a project and it has to be done, and you know what the deadline is, and so you just get up, get to the table, and you get to work, which is what I should be doing on this other stuff, but I'm not, and it's really weird. So anyway, well, actually, if I can't get a couple more Kit Carter strips done before 2022, I really got issues. So I need to get the current Zing the Zealous story arc wrapped up, which is only, I think, 1, 2, well, it might be 4 more strips, and that'll be wrapped up. And that was kind of my goal, was to get that done, because then I think that gives me 11 Kit Carter strips, and then I would think about, you know, doing a project, a longer project. And those of you are asking, Kit Carter, what the heck is that? That's the, there we go, Space Girl behind me. That's Kit Carter. This chair is sort of blocking. There we go. That's Kit Carter, and her partner is a monkey, Merv the Astro Chimp. And it's a humor adventure strip, and it's actually right now it's in comic strip format, like newspaper comic strip format, like Sunday. I mean, it's done 11 by 17 like a comic book page would, but they're single panel, or pardon me, single page strips. Basically, they're part of a continuity, but they're more gag oriented, like a newspaper strip would be. And yeah, so that's one of the many things that are floating about in my mind and occasionally make it down on paper. Well, there's Hyper Kaiju. He's that is so bad. Boo! Yeah, I mean, that's just Jeff. That's bad. I think Jeff was hoping to get slapped for that, but that's just bad. Oh. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Michael was thinking of the Harley Quinn Hourman piece. That's right. That's what I did for him recently. And that is a weird combination. And it was part of, it alluded to the Harlan Ellison novella. I guess that's the right terminology. That was Repent, Harley Quinn Said the TikTok Man. So it was Our Man and Harley Quinn, and sort of, yeah, it was very interesting. What's the weirdest commission I've ever drawn? I'm curious if it can top what Andy Smith showed the other day. Well, I just did a recent one with, I can't even remember the character's name. There's, let me see if I have access to it really quickly here. I've got to check my commissions folder, and let's see if it's in there. It should be. I can't even remember. Oh, here it is. I'll share screen with you and show you. I don't know if this is the weirdest, but it's darn close. I have one other one that if I can find it quickly, I will show you. There's like 14 steps to share your screen. It's really dumb. Okay, there it is. Okay, that's like Madcap with Deadpool's cake head on a platter. And of course, we have the decapitated Deadpool in the background. I didn't draw blood or anything because, you know, this is a PG show. But that's a pretty weird one right there. I mean, that's fairly bizarre right there. Let me see. The other one I thought was pretty weird, and it's just because it was so obscure. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, most of the time I get people asking for stuff we've all heard of, right? And see, it's hard for me to look the piece up because I can't remember the character's name. I'd never heard of this character. I'd never seen this character. And oh, wait a minute, I think it started with an N, maybe. Let me check my N's here real quick. Oh, there he is. Okay. Yeah, this is like, I mean, this, I don't know if you'd consider this as bizarre as the Madcap one, but it's unusual just in just the character itself. I just am just completely not familiar with. But this is apparently some sort of Superman villain named Nam-Ek. So yeah, that was, it's like if I was going to hire somebody, and pay, well, $375 for these 11 by 17 full color ones now. If I was going to pay that much money, I don't know that I would get Nam-Ek, but these guys the guy that got this, they got a lot of stuff from me over the years, and they usually get, fairly recognizable or normal characters, but that one was like, wow, what are you even talking about? So I've never had anybody, I'm familiar with that series because I bought it when I was a kid. When it came out, it was a #1 issue, so I grabbed it. Although I found it to be sort of lame, I mean, it was like, he wasn't really a superhero. He was a stuntman, I guess, that dressed up like the Human Fly, and that was his shtick. And somehow they tried to make him into a superhero, but I don't really know that he had any superpowers. So it was just, I don't know, it's kind of lame. But I do have that first issue sitting in my collection. So, yeah, I suppose it was Cookie Monster like cousin Nam-Ek. I'm gonna, boy, you know what? Now I can't give you a laugh for that. That's pretty lame too, Mike. Boo! Give you one of those. Andy, let's see, Andy's was a fully nude Kilowog in a bathtub. What the? He is making with his jail ring. I was triggered. I don't know that I would draw that. Maybe I would. I mean, he didn't show anything, did he? I mean, it wasn't like frontal nudity, was it? Let's see. I remember him. Some Kryptonian scientist. I don't recall why, but I remember feeling really sorry for him. Well, I mean, if he was a Kryptonian, he didn't naturally have a horn in his head, right? I mean, it must have like been part of an experiment gone wrong or something. I mean, I have no idea. Humphrey Bear is here. Yay! Gives a smiley face. That's anyway. So those are some of the crazy. I mean, I get most of the stuff I get is pretty straightforward. See, at sometimes, oh, I'm sorry. So this is the one I wanted. That, see, I wouldn't even do that. It's just, now I don't know John Malin at all, but I know that Ethan Van Sciver sort of, they go in back and forth a little bit. So it smells like my dog just came in here and took a dump. I hope that didn't happen, but I'm kind of getting that feeling that did just happen. Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to survive until I PU. I know it just happened. Oh, great! I'm sure it's out there in the hall. And anyway, yeah, I would. That would be. I'd kind of draw the line on something as kind of gross as that. Anyway, so let's switch cameras and get ready for some action, shall we? Look at my messy desk my wife always complains about, and she's right to complain about it because it is incredibly messy. But we're going to draw on that. You guys, I got to go hunt down that smell. I don't know what it is, but it's terrifying me. Oh, there it is. Talk amongst yourself for a second. There's nothing more wonderful than your dog coming in your studio and taking a duke right on the floor. Thankfully, it's hardwood, so it cleans up rather easily. But yeah, that's That's no good. We don't like that. You know, it's like the, oh my gosh, it's like was it who is that filmmaker of what's that guy's name that makes those gross films with Divine and everything? I think he made like a dog poop movie or something that was pretty disgusting. But anyway, yeah, that's not the greatest thing that I've ever done. You know what? I've got to hang on one more second, if you will. Unfortunately, I'm upstairs, so I'm farthest away from anything that resembles a cleaning product. So I had to go. Wanted to clean my hands off. Just, you know, not that I picked it up with my hands, but you know. Anyway, whew. Okay. that was about as disgusting as you're going to get on a live feed, but memorable, right? So let's get to work, shall we? Now that my dog has made his presence known. He doesn't normally do that. In fact, he rarely does that, but my daughter's up, but she apparently was ignoring him and he needed to go out. So he came in here and said, "Hey, let me out." And I'm like, "Don't bother me." He goes, "Okay." I paid the price. All right. Yeah, you know, and I think Charlie Chaplin agrees with you. Oh my gosh. You know, that's the thing. It's like you want you want to oh, you know, it's, oh gosh, you know, what are you going to do? But I could not let it sit there while I'm drawing because it's just like P freaking you. All right. So anyway, I should charge extra for the dog poop drawing. Absolutely, I should. Okay, first one is going to be Hal Jordan. The Hal Jordan Green Lantern is who we're drawing. My dog is walking around down here. He is, "Hey, what are you doing? You rotten." Looking all innocent. And okie dokie. Well, you know, it's funny thing is when you don't have like sponsorship and you don't have commercials and stuff, you can pretty much just walk off camera because there's like, what's really your expectation for entertainment on something like this, right? I mean, it's not like, you know, you got like a million viewers that have to kind of sit at home and twiddle their thumbs while you clean up the dog poop. You know, it's just, oh well. I obviously need to get my own, you know, recording studio so that I, you know, don't have to deal with these issues during a live broadcast. Of course, if I got my own studio, then there would be an expectation that the quality would be significantly higher than than what you're getting, and I don't know if I could stand the pressure. So getting back onto the topic of comics, is Hal Jordan even a thing anymore? I mean, there are so many Green Lanterns. I'm trying to think of the last time I actually saw Hal Jordan in a comic. I mean, I assume he's in Well, that's actually not true because I just drew Justice League. Well, it was 8 months, almost a year ago now. But Hal Jordan was not in the Justice League story that I drew. Flash was in it, and Jon Stewart was in it, but no Hal Jordan. So I don't know what's he. I mean, is he still a thing? Is he not PC anymore because he's a white guy? I mean, I don't know. Although I do have to admit, I think Jon Stewart is probably my favorite Green Lantern, but I think he carries a little bit more tude than Hal Jordan does. But clearly, Hal Jordan is the classic Green Lantern. So, although my gosh, Jon Stewart's been around since 1970, I think. His first appearance would have been Green Lantern '89, if I recall. I used to have that Neil Adams issue. I sold all my Neil Adams Green Lanterns along with my Spider-Man collections a few years ago to pay off my I think to pay off my truck. I can't remember. But I got frustrated because I couldn't ever get Spider-Man #1 because it was too expensive, or Amazing Fantasy 15. And so as a result, I had Spider-Man 2 and up, and I was like, and I had it, and it was just sitting there, and I was like, so I cashed it in, man. What can I say? I still have a decent collection over there in the closet, but my Spider-Man collection actually took up 4 boxes of comics, and so I have. Hal Jordan's a Republican, so he's been canceled. Yeah. We laugh, but we know it's true. Let's see. I don't even know where David gets this stuff at, man. I didn't think he was as old as me, but he almost is as old as me. So he has like as many old school references. So he's not, it's that I know him as well as he does. So he keeps saying this stuff, and it just cracks me up. But it doesn't crack me up enough not to do that. Let's see. Now, see, I don't know if are you saying that I'm not entertaining? Because if that's what you're saying, then I think you earned that if that's what you're saying. And that's Jeff's goal in life, is to get beat up on this show. See, guys that guys that stream a lot, when they're not streaming, they come on my stream and make fun of me. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. Is that the new gay? Excuse me, I meant bye, Robin. You try. I don't know. I know Aqualad's gay, right? I don't know. I have no idea. No, it isn't David. This is, of course, the Hal Jordan classic Green Lantern. Rodney Ulabari's here. Andy Smith, that's one ugly. Okay, I already read that. Yeah, they don't troll other people's shows. That's right. Yeah, look at Rodney's. Rodney's like, Danny Kaye's a legend. Show some respect, man. I actually do kind of like Danny Kaye. All right, so enough of this nonsense. Let me go ahead and start the inking process. Now, the guy that wanted this asked me if I could do it in green pen, and I was like, I don't even have a green pen, so I feel kind of bad because that's kind of a clever idea, but I actually do not own a green pen, so He's going to have to take it all in traditional black and white, I'm afraid. I remember when I was a kid, like kindergarten kind of age. Those of you who are of the elder sort might remember. You remember those? You used to be able to get Halloween costumes, and they would come with the mask, right? The plastic mask that you know, you had a rubber band on it, so you'd put on your, and they had the costume in the bag, right? And in the package. And so I remember getting a Captain America, and then my brother got the Hal Jordan Green Lantern. And that was like, I mean, seriously, that would have been, if I was in kindergarten, that would have been like 68 or 69. Dating myself there. But we actually had black and white home movies of me and my brother in our costumes wrestling with my mom. It's pretty funny stuff. But yeah, my brother was not really, he's not an artist or anything. He wasn't really into comics. He was a little bit, because every kid back then was into comics a little bit, because there wasn't really a lot of options for entertainment back in the good old days. But Green Lantern was his favorite. Hal Jordan was his favorite. And I was never a DC guy. I was always a Marvel guy. And I always thought Captain America was cool. Although I can't say I think what they're doing with Captain America right now is too cool, but, you know, whatever. I might actually use a green colored pencil to kind of go over this real quick, but he doesn't have a green pen or access to be able to go to a store and buy one. Yeah, I'm going to drive all the way 12 miles to an art supply store, which is the closest one to me, to get a green pen to do a quick head sketch in a sketchbook. That makes a lot of sense. Dave wanted, hey, now look at this. Let me do this, because I made this and I think it's yeah, ask Aaron anything. Well, almost anything. Who is my favorite Cap creative team? Now that's an interesting question, and it's not easily answered, and I'll tell you why. Because my favorite Captain America issues, oh boy, I got to be careful what I say here, because the 3 Captain America issues that Stranko did are like my favorite. They, you know, when I was a kid, we picked those up, and I had to pick them up at a old bookstore that had comics, because those, as old as you may think I am, I wasn't old enough to get those when they came out. So I had to buy them as back issues, but they were my favorite. Now, my single favorite issue, however, is the, I'm going to say Cap 164, I think it is, where the first appearance of Nightshade, and where Falcon becomes a werewolf. That was written by Steve Englehart and had brief appearance of the Yellow Claw, and had the first appearance of Nightshade, of course. But it was drawn by Alan Lee Weiss, and it is a great issue. I mean, it's so my all-time favorite. You know, you almost got to consider Zek too as being like, if you're going to like larger body of work rather than just a couple issues here or there. I would probably say I didn't really like it when Frank Robbins was drawing it in the 70s. I never really got into Robbins' artwork. He drew Cap when Cap became Nomad for a short period of time. So that That's a tough question, Dave. Kirby is not my favorite Captain America artist. Man, I'm okay. If I had to go long-term, I liked Burns' work on it, but I'd probably have to say Zek if you're talking long-term. But if we're talking just like a couple issues, or I would say my very single favorite issue is that Lee Weiss, Steve Englehart issue, and then that 3-issue run of Stranko, which I just think is fantastic. So I don't really know if that correctly answers the question. Oh man, okay, that's pretty good. Jeff Potts was a Daredevil Spider-Man fan as a kid. I was into Daredevil for a while. I had a decent Daredevil collection, and when I say decent, I mean I had a lot of issues. They were all sort of mid-grade type copies, because I was kind of a lot of stuff I didn't really start collecting comics until 74, no, 73, 74. And so anything that was prior to that, I had to, I'm going to go with the green pencil. I had to go to like used bookstores, which is where we didn't really there wasn't comic shops back then, right? At least in the purest sense, at least where I lived. I'm sure there was in New York City and places like that, but in the bigger cities. But in the Portland area, there wasn't. There was just used bookstores, and we would go in there and they would have old comics. And so that was kind of where we would get our books from. So that's where I would have to go and find this stuff that was older. I can't remember why I started telling this story now. Yeah, I don't know. But so a lot of the really cool stuff, I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff in the 70s, but all the Silver Age stuff I had to buy as back issues because I missed out on all of them. I'm doing a little extra. You can't really see the green, I don't think. Yeah, look at that. It's showing as gray. But that's green. Interesting. My camera sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck. I mean, obviously you can see the pictures, and it cost me money, but man, the color on it is just terrible. So trust me when I tell you, all this pencil is green. And it gives it a nice little green hue, which is nice. Okay, that's one down. Yeah, maybe put a little shadow in here. And of course, we will visit the Bat book. Joe Rubinstein, yeah, let me see something here. I got to get caught up. You guys you're coming at me fast and furious. Daredevil, that's interesting. Daredevil is the only character Marvel can't screw up. Well, they haven't screwed him up yet. Wait a minute. You like Stan and John Romita on Cap from 130s to the 140s? Yeah, there was a short run in there, wasn't there, where that was Romita was doing all the covers. Yeah, that's right, in the interiors. Yeah. I kind of liked a little bit of Gene Colan's Captain America too. Yeah, those are, I mean, I collect caps, so I have a lot of those issues. Because I know Romita did the first Falcon cover, but I'm pretty sure Gene Colan was doing the interiors on that. Who was the Daredevil villain? That was the Deathstalker, right? Oh, no. Yeah. That was a Deathstalker, wasn't it? Oh, I've got issues, Rodney. Yeah, that's true. But at least I have an excuse because I'm doing something else like drawing and not just telling a story and getting confused. Dave is correct. It's Mr. Hyde and Cobra. Yes. Wait a minute. I got ahead of myself here. Who is it? You said it. Joe Rubinstein inks. Okay. Joe Rubinstein is a good inker. He's a good inker. Oh, there's another question. I got to get used to that title card. You know, it's funny you should bring that up. Well, what I've got right now, if we're talking practical application of that question, I have a Deathlock series laid out. I have a Man Thing one shot that I would do as a giant size Man Thing, of course, and a Captain America World War II story. I might do Captain America. Spider-Man, I don't even. Well, I could probably say this about every character that I don't really recognize much of them anymore as what they were. You know. Sorry, I'm writing. I don't really recognize a lot of what the characters have become in the last, 10 years or whatever. So, I also got a Superman story that's not too bad that I wouldn't mind doing. Probably Captain America. He was always my second favorite next to, there's Al Jordan, by the way, and there's a little green in there. In fact, let me do this really quick. So to answer your question, probably Captain America. If I was actually like taking over a series. Okay. So look, now you can see I think you can see the green in there now. Right? Oops, wrong way. Yeah, there, you can see the green. Hey, so there it is. All right. So I put a little green in there because I'm a nice guy. What was, you got to keep the customer happy, right? All right. I'm going back to drawing now. Enough of my face. Let's take a look at the board. Just snag those cap issues for $10 total on eBay. Thanks for the recommendation. All right, Andy Smith is out of here. Thanks, Andy, for joining for a few minutes. Oh, that was a reminder of why you were telling the used book story. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, to get, did I already tell it? Anyway, yeah, my point with the used bookstore obviously was that that's where we had to go to get back issues. And so, yeah, my Daredevil collection was pretty, oh, that's why, because most of my collection was mid-grade because that was about all we could find, right? Mid to low grade stuff. And when you're, 12 and you're just sort of getting into collecting, you're collecting to read, right? And so I would just buy, any copy I could find, because you were filling in the run, right? And so it wasn't like, oh my gosh, there's Daredevil 25, but it's not near mint. I'm not going to get it. You know, if it was VG, that's what I got. Now all I do is collect this high grade because I collect for the, well, for the nostalgia, of course, but also for the value. And I started doing that when I was a kid. So I think it was in 76 that I discovered the price guide. And I was like, wow, these are worth money. And so I started being more aware of condition, but there was no grading services or anything like that. So it was, everything was very subjective. You'd look at it and go, oh, it looks like it's in pretty nice shape, you know? So you'd get it thinking for 30 years you had a near mint book, and then you take it out of the bag and the board, you haven't opened it up in, you know, 30 years, and you look at it and go, God, this is like a VF minus. It's not even close to a near mint, you know? So anyway, but that was, I had a lot of fun hunting comics to old bookstores back when I was a kid. I mean, that was a blast. I kind of missed that. Actually, David, I am doing Luke Cage next. Well, not in this book, but I actually have Hellcat's first appearance. I picked it up a 9.2 slabbed, actually, and that's starting to move a little bit. You know who Hellcat was, or what her secret identity is? It was Patsy Walker, who was like one of those sort of back in the Marvel in the 50s, I guess, and maybe into the 60s. They had her own comic. She was kind of like, it wasn't really a romance comic, but you know, so Patsy Walker actually became the Hellcat. For those of you who don't know.
Sean's here.
Oh, okay. Now, there's somebody I would draw, Willie Lumpkin, but I actually sort of have to draw the person that what they requested. I can't just like draw what I feel like. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging because I swore I would quit doing these, but likenesses, but because I do kind of dig this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to challenge myself here. You guys can't even see it because I'm drawing so light. Well, it's because I don't want to screw this up because it's a likeness. It's not like I've seriously got to quit doing these for like $20 doing likenesses. You'll probably be able to guess with these eyebrows who this is if you can see the eyebrows. Oh. Get this blocked in a little bit. I can refine it a bit. I mean, I could have done a generic version of this, I suppose, but you know, it's kind of character's sort of iconic. So Marvel reused a lot of timely properties. It was a good idea. Are we talking about in the 70s? You know, like the Invaders and stuff. I mean, I'm kind of catching bits and pieces of what's going on in the message board, so I may be a little bit behind, but they did bring back a lot of the Golden Age heroes later in the 60s and then into the 70s as well. And I liked the Invaders series. Like I said, this may not even be what you guys are talking about, but it's what I'm talking about now. I like the Invaders series a lot, but Frank Robbins was drawing it, and I didn't like Frank Robbins' artwork. was really goofy. And even now, as an older artist, I really still, a lot of stuff you develop an appreciation for, but it's not Adele, David. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, the dog's barking. My daughter's boyfriend came over, so the dog was barking. But I think he's upset that I cleaned up his handiwork. I'm serious. This is the last likeness I'm doing for these sketchbooks. Gosh, he's got a tough nose. Very interesting, though. Yeah, see, Jeff, you gotta come better than that. Yes, of course, it's Dazzler. How did you guess? Dazzler. Okay. You guys have probably got this figured out by now, right? Let's go straight across like that. I think she's got too much chin. And my dog just plopped down at my feet. Isn't that sweet? At least I know where he is and what he's doing or not doing. This nose is pissing me off. She's got a tough. So I think that's. They really had to light the heck out of her to make her better looking than she was. No offense, but with it. There's no way that I should be putting this much time and effort into a $20 sketch. I am completely out of my freaking mind. But it gets to a point of pride, you know, you start drawing something and you're like, I'm not going to hack this out. I've got to make it look decent. These eyes look like they're a little bit off. Okay, that's close enough. So now, yeah, we all know who that is now, don't we? If you don't know who it is, it's the Bride of Frankenstein, all right? And I'm trying to do a little Elsa Lanchester look to it as opposed to just doing a generic Bride of Frankenstein. And yes, I do have reference pulled up on screen. This was a pretty good movie. But even as a kid, I didn't think Elsa Lanchester was all that attractive. I shouldn't be speaking ill of the dead, but, you know, it is what it is. But then again, you know, if you're creating a female monster, I don't know. Do you want her to be an absolute babe? I don't know. Probably not. Although, if you remember the remake of The Bride with Jennifer Beal, she was pretty good looking in that. With Sting as Dr. Frankenstein. It was a very hip 80s movie. What is this? I got to catch up here. Man, you're like capturing some of the great quotes. Huh? Is that what, did I say that? I'm getting in my freaking mind. I probably did. It says, I think making a hip movie is a contract stipulation in order to cast Sting. Well, I think you may be right there. And look at this. We've got another question. Yeah. What is my favorite Universal monster? My favorite movie or my favorite monster? Oh, I see. Okay. Well, okay. Very favorite. Karloff is Frankenstein. So I couldn't just say Frankenstein. It has to be Karloff as Frankenstein. because I don't think any of the other guys that tried to do Frankenstein did him very well. I mean, Karloff just had that great face for makeup. I mean, you know, him as the mummy was also spectacularly good. So now my favorite movie, boy, I really like Creature from the Black Lagoon a lot. I like Bride of Frankenstein is really good. Son of Frankenstein actually is kind of dumb in a lot of ways. I hate to say that because it's can be considered sacrilege in some Universal Monster circles, but I just watched that not too long ago, and it's like Basil Rathbone is like, you know, Frankenstein's son, right? And he goes back and brings the monster back to life, who then goes on a killing spree. And at the end, it's so funny because at the beginning of the movie, he comes into town and everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, we hate this guy. You know, he's a Frankenstein, blah, blah, blah." So then what does he do? He goes and brings the monster back to life, who then goes on a rampage and kills people. But then he ends up killing the monster himself. And then he leaves town and everybody's cheering and saying what a great guy he is. And I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't they hate him even more now since he came back and did all this stuff? So it's a very, very bizarre movie. And Basil Rathbone is a little bit over the top in his performance at times. But, I mean, Gene Wilder does a great job of kind of sending up Son of Frankenstein in Young Frankenstein. But his, you know, when he's like playing darts with, in both movies, you know, it's like Gene Wilder is so over the top, you know, when he's playing darts with the Kemp, I guess is the guy's name, the inspector. But if you watch the original Son of Frankenstein scene with Basil Rathbone, he's about as over the top as Gene Wilder was. So it's like he's parodying something that is almost a parody in its original form. So yeah, I'm not a big, I mean, I'll watch it because it's still, you know, a Universal monster film, but I don't think it's that great of a film. So I'm going to answer your question and say probably going to go with Creature from the Black Lagoon as my favorite Universal monster film. But Bride of Frankenstein's up there as well. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm reading ahead here. Did I ever see that 70s made for TV movie miniseries? Yes, I did. It had David McCallum was Dr. Frankenstein, and Michael Sarrazin was the monster, if that's the one we're talking about. I believe you. Boris Karloff is Dracula. What? Is that a joke? When was Karloff? Karloff never played Dracula. Did he? There we go. He agrees with me. And whenever you agree with me, I go along with that. I think that's Inspector Kemp. There it is. Thanks, Mike. Well, you know, that's true. The Hammer films were just like, they tried to be as horrific and just grotesque as they possibly could. So there was, you know, the Christopher Lee version was pretty horrific. If not, but the Frankenstein, I mean, Karloff's is so iconic, but I guess that's because it was first, but still. Okay, Arsenic and Old Lace. Karloff was great in it. Karloff was not in Arsenic and Old Lace. Let me try that again. Carolyn, Arsenic and Old Lace. Karloff was not in it. The guy that played the Karloff role was, he also played in, gosh darn it, what was his name? He played in Young Mr. Lincoln. Not an attractive guy, but the joke in Arsenic and Old Lace was that he looked like Karloff, and everybody thought he was Karloff, but he wasn't Karloff. Raymond Massey is who played that character, and played the Karloffian character in Arsenic and Old Lace, and I love that movie. The Cary Grant's in it. Incredible, great movie. I don't know that I've seen this, but I may I have to check that out. I know who Sean Bean is, obviously. I have to check that out. Would I want to draw a Conan book? Well, you know, Mighty Geek, I did. I drew the Wonder Woman Conan miniseries that Gail Simone wrote for DC a couple years ago. That could constitute a Conan series. And I also wrote and drew a Conan story in Dark Horse Presents that Matt Banning inked, also known as Bat. So yes, I would love to do Conan, but I actually have done Conan. I don't have it handy, or I would pull it up and show you. I actually have drawn a Gilman in my sketchbook. I posted it on Instagram. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you can go back through all my posts and you'll find it in there. But yeah, I would do another one. That's an excellent, where is, let me see if I can find something real quick. Forgive me for typing, but I guess typing isn't quite as offensive as picking up dog poo on your live stream, right? So you have to bear with me here for a second. Okay, let's see what comes up. There it is. Okay. I am going to screen share with you guys so you can see this. Well, it's kind of small, but let me do this really quick. Well, okay, I'm already past the point of doing it quickly, but there we go. That's the cover for Dark Horse Presents that I did, the Conan story. Let me dump this banner so you can see all the, I penciled, inked, and colored it. And that was in Dark Horse Presents, I want to say 24, maybe 27, something like that, a couple years ago now. Because it predated the Conan Wonder Woman miniseries by a few months. But that's when Dark Horse still had the license. And but yeah, I would love to. I actually thought the Conan series they did when Marvel relaunched it was pretty good. Although I have to admit, I was getting annoyed with how long they were stringing out the main narrative. I think we run the risk of doing that. You start boring your audience a little bit. And it was interesting because they had the little each issue like had a flashback Conan story that, and then you'd get a little bit of the of a continuation of Conan and the old witches, or the witch that captured him. But I was getting really annoyed waiting for the conclusion of that story, and so I actually quit reading it, and I don't even know how it turned out. I think I actually have the issues up there in my collection, but I have yet to read them. So you can only push me so far before I start getting bored. And so that was kind of like, I think, at least for me, one of the appeals of the older stuff, you know, when I was a kid, was that, and I think I've mentioned this before, that, you know, they pack so much information and so much story into a couple issues that looking back on it, you'll sit there and think, oh my gosh, that, you know, that must have been like a 4-issue story arc or something. And it wasn't. It was just 2 issues, you know, but they really packed it in there. Unlike a lot of today's writers will do just the opposite and just stretch and stretch and stretch the story out when there's really no good reason to do that, other than they're trying to, you know, have enough issues for a trade paperback. And I'm just not as big a fan of that. But that, you know, I may be a minority in that, because I get bored real easy. And so yeah. Well, it's not freaking genius, but it's you know, good enough, I think. I did a left-handed, when my arm was in a sling, I did a left-handed Peter Boyle as a Frankenstein monster from Young Frankenstein, and it actually turned out pretty well. So you just never know. This is $275, I think. My goal is to get to 300 before the end of the year, which I think I'll hit, because we do have a big Aaron Con coming up here next weekend, and we'll see what happens there. But that's $275 right there. All right, so there's 2 more sketchbooks down, and now let's tackle Luke Cage, shall we? Hey, what about dropped in? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. They did with Carrie Nord. Some really cool stuff. I like how Hyper Potato is always looking out for my best interests. So, and he's right. Like and subscribe before I get canceled. Oh my gosh. I think, David, you're the only one who could say that. Starter, I just came in from cutting grass. It's freaking hot out there. Where do you live, Hyper? Where do you live? Okay, so I got a rough of Luke Cage here, so we're gonna take this next level if we can. I'm gonna try to anyway. My tiny little, you know what? I'm gonna go with this big, crappy old pencil, because it, I think it shows up pretty well. Try and zoom in. I don't know if I can zoom in anymore. Oh, I can. I'm sure I can. So we'll zoom in while I'm working on this head. This is not a commission. This is for sale when I get it done. Yeah, David thinks I should be calling it the Aaron Extravaganza rather than Aaron Con. This is interesting because that's generally the way it was, right? And so if there was one Spider-Man arc where a Green Goblin storyline, oh God, I want to say it was around Spider-Man 180-ish, 89-ish, somewhere in there, where Harry Osborn's psychiatrist, you got it, Sweet Christmas, where Harry Osborn's psychiatrist ended up being the Green Goblin. And that was like 4 issues. And that was like, if you think about it, if you're reading something like that, especially if you're a kid, right? And I know kids don't read comics anymore, but back when they did, if you had a 4-issue story arc, for example, that was 4 months. That's like a quarter of a year that you expect to keep a kid's attention. So I mean, if you think about it in terms like that, there's probably a good reason why none of those stories were more than 2 issues. Where now we have older readers, and they they can hang in there longer, I guess. Although I don't know if our older readers' attention spans are any better than. Oh, wait a minute here now. Am I going to have to pull up Luke Cage #1 and make sure I get his fro right? I don't know if his little headband went up into his hair or not. I might have made mine too thick. It's interesting. George Tuska actually was the first artist on this series. I never was a huge Tuska fan. And then I think Billy Graham came in and took over fairly early on. But I also think he had some deadline problems, so they were constantly, well, not constantly, but he would frequently have fill-ins or something. I don't know. I didn't really get into Cage until later, like just before he hooked up with Iron Fist, just because of my age. The early Luke Cage stuff was 1972, I believe. So I didn't really start reading Cage till like 74. And I think, so anything I got was, again, earlier Cage stuff was back issue stuff I would pick up at the old bookstores or stuff that carried comics. So I want to say Keith Pollard was doing some of that stuff, and when I was picking it up, I could be wrong about that though. I remember meeting Keith Pollard at show in Texas, and I was asking him, because I was trying to remember. I said, "Didn't you do some Black Panther stuff?" And he's like, "I don't know. I drew everything, And it's kind of funny because you start asking him, "Did you draw this?" And he's like, "Yeah, probably," but he couldn't really remember, because he did so much stuff back in that period of time. But I guess he had that really kind of lengthy run on the FF too, which I had completely forgotten about, but really only because I never really read the FF. But I think he also had a run on Spider-Man too, if memory serves. Keith was really good. He was kind of John Buscema-esque. I'm not trying to minimize his, his style, but he was kind of in that vein. And so he just drew really well. But he had that sort of, you know, how should we say? He drew kind of in a way that was comfortable. It was like a, I don't want to say a house style, but he drew well, and he drew kind of what you wanted the stuff to look like. That's sort of how he drew. So he didn't have a real, out there sort of wonky stylized approach. So his stuff didn't stand out in terms of, uniqueness, but it did stand out in terms of quality. And that's kind of how I always sort of looked at Buscema growing up. Buscema didn't, Barry Smith's Conan is so incredibly different than John Buscema's. And you can either, everybody has a great deal of respect for Buscema because he drew so well, at least drew in the, what we would consider, again, I hate to use the word realistic because that's not really accurate, but sort of in that realistic mode where Barry Smith was much more stylized in his approach and unique. And so that's why Barry Smith is probably more popular. And Pollard was sort of that same vein as Buscema. He just drew really well, but he didn't do anything that was sort of really odd or bizarre that you could hang your hat on stylistically and say, oh yeah, that was definitely Pollard-esque or something, This is almost like Kirby-esque in this approach. This is a good question. Is David going to set up at AaronCon? David, are you going to set up? He says do it, so I think that means he's on board for it. I'll bring him on. I will bring him on. If he will come on, I will always bring David on. Yes, this is exactly why I didn't like Tusca. He always did that bucktooth thing with the teeth. Graham was inking Tusca before taking over the pencils. That would be, you are correct. That is correct. I agree with you. Well, I think David actually, Williams and I talked a little bit about Cage and what he preferred. Yes, he was. But David and I were discussing, do we like Luke Cage Hero for Hire or Luke Cage Power Man better? And we both kind of liked Hero for Hire because it was more interesting. I thought that, staying sort of in the inner city and where he grew up and sort of making a difference, but at the same time, like understanding that, he had to make a living, right? So he's like this hero for hire. And I just thought that was really, and it didn't last very long before he became Power Man. And I don't know, maybe they felt he was too mercenary. I don't know, but I really thought that was a cool concept. And I'd like him to go back to that because it might not have been too popular of a way to approach, being a superhero back then, but you could really get away with that now. And people, I think, would really, if they didn't like it back then, I think they would really dig it now because it's such a novel concept. It's like, if you remember early on with Spider-Man, he tried to join the Fantastic Four, right? In Spider-Man #1. And the first thing he asked them was, well, what does the job pay? And they're like, pay? We don't pay for this, and because Spider-Man was always looking for a way to earn a few bucks. To make ends meet. And it's like, if you're a superhero, yeah, duh, what are you going to do for a living? I mean, Reed Richards should have been the richest man alive for the stuff that dude invented. So I don't know what the moral of the story is, but I just kind of like the idea of Luke Cage Hero for Hire. I thought was much more interesting than just straight up, you know, Power Man, where he just became another kind of generic superhero. And then teaming him up with Iron Fist was really bizarre. And I'm a big Iron Fist fan. I always liked Iron Fist, maybe probably because Byrne drew him. And he had the costume that had sort of like the little Spider-Man eyes. And I was a big Spider-Man fan, so I kind of dug that too. But I don't know. I was all over the map. I liked a lot of stuff. I was obviously, you know, you guys know I was a big Monster fan. But I was also a superhero fan, so I was torn. I was like, you know, no genre was safe from me. All right, David, you want me to check this out like right now or later? I vaguely, like I said, I wasn't much of an FF guy growing up, so I didn't really read it a lot. But that sounds familiar, and it's like they go back. Well, they had the building, right? I mean, they had to pay rent on that entire building. But you would think that excuse me, I have to go to Instagram and see what David Williams sent me. You would think that with all those inventions that Reed Richards was making, that they would just been like, you know, spend like an absolute billionaire. So I don't know, you know. Oh, there we go. That's cool. All right. Can I share this, David? I assume I can. I'll wait till I get your I'll get your okay in here. Can I share that drawing? Because I assume that's why you sent it to me, right? I'm waiting for the time delay here for David to jump in and tell me it's okay to share his drawing he just sent me. Now, did you guys see the Luke Cage miniseries that Jendi Tartakovsky did? I thought it was kind of fun. Come on, David, respond. I'm not going to show your drawing until you tell me I can. Yeah, that's right. Genius that never made any money because well, that wasn't the case with Edison. That guy knew how to cash in. Oh, okay. David's yelling at me a lot. Look at this. I'm sensitive. Look at him. He's just yelling at me all the time. Okay, so let's take a look at what David Williams did. Since we're doing Luke Cage. There it is. That's David Williams' Luke Cage, and actually he showed me that I screwed up on the headband, so that was actually a value. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. I gave him Wonder Woman's headband. That's kind of not cool. If you find your ass is on fire, call on me. your hero from. Yeah, baby. All right. So there you have it. Okay, so there's David's. Just removed myself, which some people might see as a positive thing. So, all right, David, why are you laughing? You're off. Because I did Wonder Woman's headband. I actually do have a commission to do, but it's an 11 by 17, so I can't do it on screen. Or during a live stream, because I can't really, it's too big to handle on this drawing board. So, and plus I charge a pretty decent sum for, well, actually some people are telling me I don't charge enough, but for those color ones. And so I'd like to do them on the drafting table to make sure that they are of the highest quality possible. So, David, is that was that a commission you did for somebody, or is that Luke Cage currently up for sale that you have that we just showed? Now, see, I would do a Luke Cage series if. Oh, laughing because I read the Cage caption out loud. Yeah, well. The only way I'd do a Cage series now is if he was in this outfit, the 70s outfit. You know, the bald, sort of trendy Luke Cage doesn't really do it for me. I want 70s Cage. Of course, I could pretty much say that of just about any character. I guess we're all sort of products of the era we grew up in comics, right? Those are always our, you know, it's always going to be our favorite era is the one that we grew up reading them in, first reading them in. I always wanted to get that, when Randy Bowen was doing all those Marvel busts, he had a Cage one. That was one of the ones I wanted to get. But I'm not really much of a statue guy. But it was the Luke Cage, the Western Ghost Rider. I always wanted to get that one too. I actually thought the Thing bust was pretty good with the cigar I think he had. Even 70s Wonder Woman. I didn't read 70s Wonder Woman. I was not a DC guy at all growing up. I read Spectre, and I think I picked up a couple of the Phantom Stranger issues where Dead Man appeared, and Swamp Thing. I mean, that was pretty much it. So yeah, when I was growing up, man, it was all Marvel. Even when the Teen Titans were cool, I was just not. I always thought all the DC characters were old-fashioned and lame. And of course, I have a different perspective now, but you know, when I was a kid, that's kind of where I was at. Except for the, you know, like I said, I thought the Spectre was cool, and Dead Man was cool. But that was my monster proclivities, I guess, taking over. But I assume you're talking about the Wonder Woman where she was like Diana Prince, secret agent or whatever. Well, the interesting thing about Wonder Woman is that she's never really sold that well. She's been more of a cult favorite. And because she's one of the big three, they have to keep the book going. But she's never been a really big seller. And, you know, so they basically had to re-envision her back in the 70s to kind of figure out, you know, some way to get people to buy the book. Of course, back when I was a kid in the 70s, you know, female superheroes just weren't a thing. I mean, they were supporting characters, obviously, because you needed them, obviously, to round out the universe. But they weren't books that would sell on their own because most everybody that was buying comics back then were young boys, right? And they didn't want to read about Ms. Marvel. They wanted to read about Captain America or whatever. And now, because the art is so much better on whole, and your readership is older, you know, it's kind of like, hey, babe characters, we like those. But that was never really the case when, you know, in the 70s when we were kids. They couldn't get a female character to carry her own title to, you know. Maybe the X-Men changed that a little bit because of the popularity of a lot of the X-Men characters and a lot of the female X-Men characters. Oh, Joel just got his Kitty Pryde that you guys saw me do on this live stream. So thanks, Joel. Thank you. I'm glad it got there safe. Yeah, there you go. Me and Hyper Kaiju are on the same page there. I started getting to Batman later into the 80s, but I was already in my 20s by then. What does Mike have to say about Marvel seemed more willing to take chances in the 70s to give creators a shot at taking characters in different directions or give new characters a chance? Yeah, but I think that's also, well, Roy Thomas was in charge, right? So he had kind of a younger mentality about him than, say, Stan Lee did. And it's all about making money, right? I mean, it should be. It isn't right now. It's all about politics right now, but it should be about making money. And so I think, and sales were, I mean, I was reading that that Marvel Comics, you know, the Untold History or whatever it's called, a little while ago, and they were all thinking that comics were going to be a thing of the past by 1980. You know, they just thought it was a dying industry, and so they were doing a lot of anything they could to sell books, and that's why the big monster craze happened, or the supernatural craze happened and the sword and sorcery stuff all happened in the early to mid 70s, is because they were looking for an alternative to superheroes, which seemed to be not selling that great. And so you had a lot of monster books and Ghost Rider, Werewolf by Night, Man Thing, Swamp Thing. So yeah, I think they were looking for just about anything that would sell. Master of Kung Fu. Well, even Luke Cage was a product of the popularity of the blaxploitation films of the early 70s. And then, of course, the Bruce Lee fad is what prompted Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. So, because we had all those Kung Fu films and stuff coming out. So, it was definitely a different time, that's for sure. And I knew they, they let Englehart and Starlin and those guys just kind of run wild a little bit. Came up with some pretty interesting stuff. Of course, a lot of Starlin stuff was pretty trippy, man. He was doing a lot of drugs, I think, at the time. So, at least that's what I've been told. Not from Jim himself, because I don't know Jim, so I don't mean to be saying that, to disparage the guy, but apparently that's what was going on. And that's why Warlock and Captain Marvel were like really trippy. So my son, who's 27 right now, was reading some of the Starlin Captain Marvel stuff. He wanted to kind of get the backstory from the Marvel movies a little bit, which I know that most of that stuff came out of the 90s, but so he was reading all the old Starlin stuff, and he was like, man, this stuff is trippy. I can't even tell what's going on half the time. And I do remember picking up Warlock and just like, and they had that purple guy who was like what was his name? The Magus or something, that was the future Warlock or something. He was purple and had that like white fro. And I was like, what is going on in this book? I mean, I really liked the art, but I just was like, I could not comprehend what the heck was going on in that book. But I bought it because the artwork was cool. Mike agrees with you. It was the Magus. Yay for me for remembering. Thanks, Mike, for confirming. Yeah, I agree with that, Hyper Kaiju. The problem is, I mean, it comes down to you guys really they're the readers. That stuff just doesn't sell. And, we can sit here and complain all we want. Oh, we need more diverse, subject matter and all that. But if you're a company trying to make a profit, and it's questionable whether Marvel and DC are trying to make profits based on what they're doing these days, but let's just hypothetically say that's what they're trying to do. It's hard to justify publishing that stuff when no one buys it. I mean, I love fantasy stuff. I'm not a huge science fiction fan because I don't really like the hardware. The fantasy stuff to me is, I enjoy more drawing it because it's, I like drawing that stuff more. You know, sword and sorcery type stuff. But I don't know, they just can't, I don't know why. And it was even true in the 70s. There was that short period of time where that stuff was kind of popular, but then it just sort of died out and went back to superheroes. And I'm not sure I really understand why that is. You know, it's, maybe it stems back to our, you know, where comic books really got popular was with superheroes, you know, basically fighting World War II. And that was kind of, you know, obviously the golden age of comics was this advent of superheroes. And, you know, maybe that's just stuck in everybody's psyche. I don't know. But I think you find a lot of times creators, you know, if they're doing their own book, like a lot of us did or are trying to do, we're not doing superhero books. I mean, some of us are, but like mine's a Western kind of superhero thing. The larger than life superhero thing, I think we all aspire to be, at least as kids, again, as young readers, you know. That's why Indiana Jones is cool, you know, is because he's kind of a hero that we'd all kind of like to be, and gets to do heroic adventure stuff that, let's face it, most of us would be too chicken to even attempt, you know. And so I think there's a lot of that sort of identifying with, you know, or what we would aspire to be, you know, to get in superheroes. But then, you know, Lord of the Rings was, you know, they did the movie, was super, super popular. Of course, you know, the quality was there, but so I don't know. I don't really have a good explanation of why stuff doesn't, outside of superheroes, doesn't seem to stick in mainstream comics. David wants to know if I'm going to color it. Yeah, probably. This is the most Kirby-esque pose I think I've ever done. It's Luke Cage busting out. Actually, almost everything about him I can do in marker and then just add a little bit of color over the top, because the warm grays lean towards yellow and the cool grays lean towards blue. So, and that's really all his costume is. Let's see what I can pull off here. This is that super smooth paper. The blacks are more likely to bleed on this super smooth paper. That was just, I just hit that with a warm 0. Oh, that's true. Mike has a good point. Full-on Kirby would need that leading fist to be about 3 times that size, yeah. There you go, Dave. Dave's on board. The 70s. Now, Dave's my age. Actually, Dave, you might be are you a little bit older than me? I can't remember. We're about the same age, though. Hyper Potato seems to think that where it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, I'm not against doing it, but it's the same thing with the old thing about anthologies don't sell, right? But I think that's only partially true. And what I mean by that is it depends on what's in the anthology. If you're doing an anthology book that's just a self-contained story, or a couple of self-contained stories, then yeah, I don't think it sells, because I think a lot of success that series have to be by being around and continually out in the marketplace, so people get used to it, and then they start to say, hey, I'm familiar with this character. Now you start buying it and it becomes sort of part of popular culture. Where if you just do a single story, and even if the stuff is really, really good, by really good creators, you're still just getting a single story, and you're not carrying it on, right? So I think if you did an anthology book with a continuing story in it, it has a lot more likelihood of succeeding, like Tales of Suspense or Tales to Astonish were back in the day. And of course, the only reason Marvel did that was because they had to, because DC controlled the distribution up till 1968, and so they'd only allow them to have a certain amount of titles. So they had to jam all their characters into a couple of books. But I've been talking to David Williams and a few other people about the possibility of doing an anthology book. But it'd be an anthology book that would be there to launch, universes and series, not just to, do a single, sci-fi story or something and then never revisit it. Because people, regardless of what people say, people like connected universes. People like, continuity as being part of the comic book experience, because it allows you to become part of something that's bigger than yourself. Reading a single story, I don't think you can enjoy it and say, wow, that was really cool. But when it's over, it's over. If you're doing something that keeps coming back, that was the whole idea, right, of comics. You keep bringing something back every month. You keep the reader coming back for more if they like what you're giving them. So I do think if you use an anthology in the right way, you can succeed with it. And I think we've seen in the past, like ElfQuest and things like that, did really well on a smaller basis, right? Obviously, they're not going to sell the same numbers that Marvel or DC were selling, but I think they did pretty well for a while there. I don't know what that means. Folk music anthologies. Oh, hi. On break at work, I go with Hi Verona. Thank you so much for Hal and the Bride sketches. You make it look so easy. Thank you, Sequential Artist. chicks. Yeah. Jeff, here, I got a little something for you. I'm not done with it yet. Well, that goes without saying. I mean, it has to be done well. But you know, it's still stuff that was done well. I mean, we did well at Malibu. Since Dave is in the chat, we did. I mean, Malibu. I know there's, you know, certain reasons why Malibu ended up failing, but you know, I don't know. Dave, did the popularity on the Ultraverse stuff, was that really the reason that the company failed? Was lack of leadership, or was there other stuff going on there? Seems to me I know the answer to this question, but I can't remember. But you know, CrossGen had a really nice connected universe too, and really high quality stuff. And now, of course, anytime you're competing with Marvel and DC, you're going to lose in the sales department, but you can do enough sales to survive if you're smart and judicious about the amount of product you're pumping into the market. Because let's face it, there is only so many buyers, and that has been true for a long time. Losing 2,000 comic book stores because they overbought Image and Valiant books was the major culprit. Interesting. So we didn't get, when I say we, I mean I was working for Malibu, but I wasn't part of the staff. So basically what you're saying, Dave, is that you losing venues to promote the books in and sell the books in was a major contributor to sales dropping off. This is true. It's never too early, Michael. Yeah, I don't. You know, Dave Olbrich and I have talked about this for years. It's like, how can we start a new company, or how can we do this and make money at it? And that's always the question. How do you break through? Obviously, you need the capital. And you got to have the distribution, because you have to get in front of people. If they don't know about your book, they're not going to buy it. And isn't that really sort of part of the trick of crowdfunding, is getting enough eyeballs on your project to get to actually sell it to a point where, you know, it's viable. Well, that's the thing. This is interesting right here, because this is true too. That's what I've. That's right. I remember that now as being actually actually part of the deal. Also trying to find other venues to sell books out of, along with 7-Eleven and corner stores hurt comic sales. You know what? Dave, I assume you're watching, Ulbrich, I assume you're watching on Facebook. I'm going to send you a link and get you in here so we can discuss this further, because this is an interesting topic. And I know you're obviously more, bear with me, folks, for just 1 second here as I send Dave Ulbrich a link. And see if he will drop in and talk to us for a minute. All right, Dave, I just sent you a link to your Facebook. So if you want to come on in, and we can discuss this, because I find this is very interesting. Anytime I buy comics out in the general public, I like Second and Charles or Goodwill. Someone comments they didn't know comics were still made. General public thinks comics died when they left the spinner racks. You know, it is true, but how much of the problem also is the fact that it's the fact that we don't have the same audience as we used to have, right? And I mean, the harsh reality is that it's a market that is different now than it was when most of us were kids reading comics. Because are there kids reading comics anymore? I don't know. Let's ask Dave Ulbrich and see what he has to say. Hey, Dave. I'd like to introduce to everybody Dave Ulbrich, former publisher of Malibu Comics, now does his.
I got to turn on. I got both feeds going in my head. There we go. Now I'm just getting the one. Sorry about that. Hi guys.
Let me introduce Dave Ulbrich, former publisher of Malibu Comics, now does the
bartender at Geek View Tavern.
Geek View Tavern, that's what it is. That's a YouTube.
That's a YouTube channel. Check it out. Yeah, there's 12 or 13, something like that, videos. I'm working on the next one now. So. And yeah, they're fun.
Some point I'm going to be a guest, right?
I'm going to go ahead and spoiler this bad boy. Here's what we want to do, Eric. Did I tell you what we wanted to do?
No.
This is so completely off topic. Me and you and Tom and Maggie, we want to talk about the top 5 Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Oh my gosh! All right, I'm totally on board for that.
Doesn't that sound like fun?
Yes, and I can sing the songs from most of them, so it'll be.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's exact. I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing I want to do at Geek View Tavern. Just have some fun and talk about the kind of stuff you and I would talk about over dinner or whatever.
Well, that sounds fantastic. But let's get to the conversation at hand here. Back to the conversation at hand. What is the problem, Dave, with selling comics or launching a new company? What's the hang up? What's the challenge?
Well, the biggest problem is, believe it or not, there's two-pronged problem. The biggest problem is the success of the stuff at the bottom. So unfortunately, instead of what's killing the profitability of everything is that the bar to get into the business is so low that right before the pandemic started, comic business, without counting any of the stuff on crowdfunding, without counting any of those books, just the stuff coming through Diamond was somewhere in the tune of 700 to 800 comics a month. How can any of those things be profitable?
That's an excellent question.
So, I mean, that's part of the problem, and it started a long time ago. It's just the fractured audience. We don't have any consensus about which books we're going to buy, which books we're not going to buy in bulk, as a sort of kind of as a community, right? And because there's so much choice, there's so many people wanting to do their own thing, and God bless them. I mean, I'm not trying to come down negative on the side of people creating great comics, right? But the problem is there's so many choices. The audience is so small that we're selling more dollars worth of comics now than we were probably 10 years ago. but everything's unprofitable because there's so many titles.
Well, but doesn't the cream rise to the top, or do you think it just gets bogged down because there's so much white noise out there, so to speak, that people can't find the really good stuff that easily?
Well, I think you make an excellent point, but I also think part of the problem is we don't have any consensus agreement on what constitutes cream and what constitutes crap.
Well, now wait a minute. Now hang on a second. I got to shut the door. My dog's going ballistic downstairs.
I mean, I think there should be room for crap, but that is only allowable if the audience is big enough.
Well, isn't that how Malibu got its start, was publishing crap, though?
Well, sure, but it's different now because back then it was barely 400 titles. There's twice as many titles now.
So are you saying that the audience isn't discerning enough to?
Well, part of the problem is even the stuff at the bottom end is significantly better now than it was 15, 20 years ago.
That's true.
I mean, the level of professionalism also retards the production schedules because it's killing guys like you. I mean, you do a great job, and I think your comics are wonderful. I've always thought that, but doing it on a monthly basis is not something a lot of guys can do, and yet they still want to make comics. God bless them, and they still want to make money from those comics, but the bar is so high in terms of what is a professional comic that you can't really produce them on a monthly schedule without changing out artists, and that has its own downside.
Well,
it's really frustrating.
But so if you're gonna, like, let's say you and I, and we've talked about this a million times.
Hours and hours.
Right. So let's just say you and I were at a con and we bump into some guy that has $5 million and says, I really want to start a comic company. Right. Yeah. And so we say, well, we're your guys. And so what would be your strategy to make it work? Or have you not figured that out yet? Are we still guessing what that is?
Well, distribution's a major problem. So I think you would have to, you'd almost have, even with that kind of money, you'd still have to grow the crowdfunding route just because you can create a loyal audience base without, and they basically don't have to get up from their computer screens.
Right.
I mean, that's part of it. Plus, crowdfunding also takes out, I mean, because they're so friggin' unprofitable, it takes out the money that you need to leave on the table, both for printing sometimes, but mostly for shipping and more importantly for Diamond and the Retailer. I mean, Diamond and the Retailer, that's 60% of the cost of a comic.
Right.
So even if you wanted to make exactly the same money that you're making now, you could cut the price in half and make the same amount of money if you weren't cutting Diamond or any distributor and a retailer in on the mix. Well, that's not I hope people aren't taking away from that I'm some kind of anti-retailer. It's just the math.
No, I get that, and but one of the problems I think that I have with crowdfunding that makes me nervous, right? Even though I'm putting one together right now, is that the price point, right? Because you know, most guys, other than Ethan Van Sciver's a guy who obviously, you know, he's got 17,000 copies he sold of Cyberfrog, but most guys are getting 300 buyers to maybe 1,200 buyers, maybe get to 2,000 buyers. And in order to actually just make a page rate and, you know, pay your colorist and say you got a whole crew working for you, right? You're not doing the whole thing yourself. But even then you'd want to pay yourself, right, for the time you've got into it. You know, you can't sell enough copies, crowdfunding, generally speaking, to lower that price down to $5.99 or, you know, so you're charging $25.
Well, you have to find ways to be able to get guys to back stuff and make it worth their while to spend $25, $30, whatever for that specialty stuff. And God bless them if they're willing to do that. But I think you have to also come up with a plan that allows you to, after the crowdfunding is over and you've made all those crowdfunding people happy, you need to be able to release that stuff into regular sales channels of one kind or another. So you have to double and triple dip, or you're never going to get there.
That's the key, and that I agree with.
And you got to leverage YouTube. You got to leverage Instagram. I mean, you got to do all of those things, and it's not really anything new. It's the same old stuff. But it's really just about finding a loyal audience that's willing to stick with you and overcome the hurdles, and then figuring out where the process is to farm for more.
See, to me, that's kind of the key. That if you could crowdfund in a way that you could sell enough product to basically pay for the book, right, and pay yourself. Let's just say that to break even, right, taking into account your breaking even being part of breaking even being meeting your pay,
getting everybody paid, right? So we're not starving.
Right.
We're
not in the profit zone yet, and then taking that crowdfunded book and then distributing it through your retailers so that you can get a, you know.
Yeah, I only have one small addendum to that, which I think you're right. Is you're going to want to make sure that crowdfunding allows you to print all the copies for all your crowdfunding people in the formats that they paid for, right? But you're going to need a non-crowdfunding format that the money paid to print. So you've got that stuff in inventory. So whenever whoever comes along that wants to read your comic that hasn't yet, that wasn't there when you crowdfunded it, you could just send it to them and you're not printing more at that point.
Right. You'd have that. Yes, I agree. The question though is if you make it, you have to make it. And I guess that's what you're talking about when guys do perks and things like that, that you're getting special things you're getting as a buyer from a crowdfunded book that even though you released it through retail, they're not getting the same thing that the crowdfunders are getting.
Right. Yeah. You have to make you got to take care of your base.
Right.
And then use some of the extra from that base to farm to make a bigger base. Yeah.
Right. So now stepping back a little bit into, because this is what people really want to hear about, Dave, is Malibu, right?
No, I get that a lot. Did you see that some guy did a guy named Uncle Jerk or Jerk Comic or something like that did a 3.5-hour interview with me? It was actually a 4-hour interview, but he managed to edit out a half hour of it.
Well, we're going to do the Reader's Digest version.
I can't even get my relatives to watch an interview with me that long.
Well, that's why I'm drawing Luke Cage, so people will watch this and listen to you. See,
there you go.
So as you were pointing out in the chat that so what let's recap that a little bit. In your opinion, and you obviously were the publisher, so you would know, what was really the downfall of Malibu Comics? What were the issues that really caused problems financially for the company?
Well,
that you can say without indicting anybody.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you, brother. I get it. I'm not going to get anybody in trouble, I don't think. The fact that the game division that helped us launch the Ultraverse ended up being a money pit would have allowed us to survive a little longer. I don't know if you assume that doesn't really change anything.
Right.
We would have had to make some significant changes to the way we were doing business, but that money pit really was a problem for sure.
Now,
So
did they
we
provide?
could have lasted significantly longer, but you know there was lots of financial turmoil around that time, around '95. So you know we were making games that were basically obsolete. THQ went out of business. We had a big deal with THQ that was going to make our games, so we didn't have a customer to sell our games to. It was bad. Yeah.
So you basically got the cart way in front of the horse on the video games. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, it was an existing studio, but we didn't realize how bad it was being managed.
I see.
And we were all, I mean, between bad management and being the victims of circumstances sort of beyond our control, you know, when your primary customer just coughs up blood and goes away, replacing them in a big hurry is important, and we weren't able to do that.
Well, so all right. So
I mean, we would probably only gotten another year of Malibu anyway, because what happened in addition to all of that, of course, is you know, some 2,000 about somewhere between a third and a half of the retailers went out of business. Comic book retailers.
well,
So you saw those sales figures,
right. Well, so
you saw you turned down hard case, and what did the hard case one sell?
well, all the books that you guys launched did really well. The first wave, right? The first three, was it 3 books?
Yeah.
Prime, hard case, and
Hard case did about $250,000. What did the Sludge one do?
90,000,
Yeah,
I think, something like that.
right. We were already on a trajectory at that point. Poor
Right.
Jeff Johnson working on Solitaire. That was a beautiful book that almost nobody saw comparatively.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was, I guess, financially, it was a dumb move for me to take on Sludge rather than Hard Case. But you know,
I still think you were happier. I think you were a happier.
oh yeah,
I think you're happier spending time drawing those pages than you would have been working on Hard Case.
that's definitely true. Even the battles with Gerber were still worthwhile.
Yeah.
To do that book. So
between the you know, the speculators basically going, you mean these comics are worth about 10 cents on the dollar? Well, I'm not going to buy any more of these shitty Valiant books. I'm not going to buy any more of these shitty Image books. I'm not even going to buy any more of these shitty Marvel and DC books. I'm going to go do something else. And then half the retailers disappeared. Well, if you don't have shelves to put the comics on, you can't stay in business, or at least you couldn't stay in the business the way our business plan was constructed.
So really then what we all sort of joked about it, but that's really true, is the fact that Malibu came in at the tail end of the booming speculation, or the speculators market, and then was a victim of everybody leaving the speculators market. Is that fair?
It's a lot more complicated than that, but I think that's fair. I think that's a fair comment.
I wonder if, so you don't think it had anything to do with, I mean, obviously that's the main juxt of what happened, but did you guys were you able to look at it and say, you know, we've got too many titles, or was it just, you know, this just isn't going to work the way that we've got it, the way that we structured it to begin with?
Believe it or not, patting myself on the back, the structure of the deals and all that stuff really wasn't the problem. I mean, we could have easily adjusted the upfront page rates and royalties to make it profitable. That wasn't, we could have taken care of that. It's just that everything was falling so fast, and we built up this kind of infrastructure internally that, you know, we were facing, you know, laying off half the staff, maybe, and
Jeez.
then trying to figure out how many books that half staff could still produce.
Wow. It's
And we literally couldn't lay off people fast enough. By the time we turned around and figured out that there was no door to the room we were in, we were into the printer for several $million.
right. Well, see, because I remember actually having this conversation with a buyer, right? Trying to convince him to buy, and he was a collector, right? So tried why he should buy Sludge, and and it was funny because I was, like I said, #1 launched at about 90,000 copies. By the time I did the Frankenstein issue, which was number 5, I think, yes, it was 5. That was down to 40-some thousand copies.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And it was dropping, right? Now I don't know what the final numbers on the last issue of Sludge we did was. I don't know if you remember back then, because that would have been the summer of '94, probably.
No, but they all slumped below 30, and that was getting close to where we were nailing our low end profitability at. I mean, we would if it got significantly below 25, we'd have had to change things significantly.
Well, so was part of it that you couldn't absorb the loss in sales numbers because of the overhead of how the business was set up and the employees you had and the coloring and all that kind of in-house, all that kind of stuff?
That's part of it. I mean, color printing is a lot more expensive than black and white printing, and we survived on black and white printing for 6 years before Image came along.
But you had full-time colorists you were employing too.
Yeah, but that was actually cheaper.
Oh, was it really? Then
yeah.
Did you guys have anything like CrossGen did, where you had health insurance or anything like that, or for these full-time employees, or did you?
Yeah, well, for the employees we had to have, we weren't able to extend it to freelancers, as you're well aware.
Right. Well, no, but I mean, the colorists, were they not salaried people?
Yeah.
Working in, so
they're working in 3 shifts.
So
I mean, they could literally color a book. They could color 2 books overnight. Or they could color a book a night.
That had to have been serious overhead, though. I got to think for the.
Well, yeah, no. If we had cut back books, we would have had to cut the coloring department, sure.
Right.
But just on an open count basis, it was cheaper. If that makes any sense. I'm not sure what the right word is, but it would have been cheaper than doing the same books freelance. Because we were even running our own film. We weren't even sending our film. We weren't even sending our files to a place that generated the film. We were generating our own film.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting. So my next question was going to be, so basically turning everybody freelance would not have saved you guys enough money to go forward?
Probably not, no.
It's interesting. So, your guys' original at Malibu, your original business model was put out as many books as possible, as cheaply as possible, right? And make a little bit of money on each book. And then because you had so much product out there that you would actually make a profit, because you'd make, a couple thousand on this book, couple thousand on that book, couple thousand on that book, and it would add up. Was that not, when you were doing black and white books, I mean, was that not
right? But when the basic idea was just to keep publishing enough to stay in the game so that you could continue to search and find those books that might basically pay for the other books. You know what I'm saying? We were actively trying to think of, okay, this is a bad example because, well, you'll know why in a second, but we were actively looking for the Men in Black. When we published the Men in Black, we didn't know it had any hope of becoming the Men in Black.
Right.
That's what we were looking for, because Batman, the original Batman came out in '89, and we started publishing in '87, and we were doing creator-owned books. And you got to remember, there were still books that were doing quite well. at that point because there was a lot less competition, and there was fan magazines and the Comic Buyer's Guide, and there was comic shop news, and there was places to talk about it, where people kind of had to go to a store to find out about their comics, and there was a much better sense of community that at some level the computer revolution kind of destroyed.
Isn't that interesting that we don't really have sort of the kind of fandom base in the same way that we did, you know?
Well, it's like I was talking about before. It's consensus, right? We don't have any consensus about those things. It's all been fractured. So you might actually have more fans, but their diverse interests are driving them to a diverse set of books that are not profitable because
Right.
you can't get enough of them to agree on what to buy.
So basically, back in the 60s and 70s, you had Marvel and DC, and then anybody that was doing anything else, that was considered like a fanzine or stuff like that, where guys would use those as stepping stones to get to Marvel and DC.
Well, and it was why Charlton would always, I mean, it's why Charlton tried to copy Marvel and DC. It's why Atlas tried to copy Marvel and DC. And it's why other places were just doing, you know, TV licenses and that kind of thing, because if you, at least you were giving the person who was jobbing those onto the newsstand, if at least they knew what it was, they were more likely to buy it.
Right.
Right? So you give them something called Moon Knight, and they would go, "No, I don't need any of those fucking things." But sorry about the language. Hit the language alert button, would you?
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. Yeah, hang on. I was ill prepared for you to drop an F-bomb on me, so I've got to do this. Okay.
Dave Potty Mouth. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But if you, that's one of the reasons that Malibu in its mid stage did all those books with recognizable names. We did a 4-issue miniseries of the Three Musketeers. We did a 4-issue miniseries of Frankenstein. We did Sherlock Holmes meets Dracula, right? Gotham, or not Gotham by Gaslight. What do we call it? Crap. What was it called?
Well, that's actually a pretty good idea. I like that.
No, we did a Sherlock Holmes meets Dracula book. What the heck was this called? It's been published 3 or 4 times since. It's been published an additional 3 or 4 times since we did it.
And all that stuff was public domain, right? So you didn't have to worry about any of that.
Well, we only had to pay the creators, right? The problem with licensed books are if they don't deliver a big enough audience, it's another mouth to feed on the books. Right.
Now, this is a more personal curiosity for me. When you're doing a licensed property, like, you know, let's say you guys licensed John Carter or whatever, right?
Okay, all right.
Are you paying these guys upfront fee, or is it a percentage of the book, or is it both?
Okay, here's the way. Well, there's all sorts of problems with doing a licensed property, but the way the payment goes is there is a signing amount. You just have to pay them X amount up front.
Right.
And that's against an X guarantee. So it might be, just for round numbers, you paid them $10,000 up front against $100,000 guarantee. And as you're publishing, you have to give them a percentage of all of that income. And if by the time you're done with your license, it doesn't equal the $100,000, then there's a balloon payment at the end.
Oh, so you're on the hook for that $100,000, whether your books sell or not.
That's right.
Wow, that seems like a lot of.
I mean, those are remember, those are made up numbers, so the numbers are more realistic, but the concept is the same. And but the real downside is you don't own it.
Right.
So you can publish it, but as soon as the license is over, they own all the reprint rights. They own everything about it except for the original pages. And some of them try to get you to let them own the original pages as part of the licensing deal. We had to walk away from 2 or 3 licenses because they said, "Oh, no, we're going to own the original artwork." And I said, we had to tell them, "No, you're not. We're going to return that to the artist, as is customary in the comic book business. So if that's something you want, we don't want to do deal."
That's really interesting because I wasn't. I was always wondering about exactly how that licensing worked out because the way you describe it, it doesn't sound. What's the upside other than getting maybe attention on you for something that people recognize? What's the upside of licensing a book? Because it sounds like it's really hard to make money doing it.
Well, if you get the right book, it can blow the doors off the long-term guarantee. So I'm sure,
Like Dark Horse
I'm sure
Aliens.
Dark Horse did just fine with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right.
So there's that. So you can make money if you pick the right one, and and the other thing is you have to go through this what can be a heinous approval process. So they can stop you from publishing anything they don't like.
Right.
That's on top of all the other problems. I mean, it's just brutal.
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't sound. You're not doing a very good job of convincing me that licensing a product is a good idea.
I'm sorry. I mean, you do it.
But I don't.
You do it for a couple of reasons. If the money calculations work out, if the spreadsheet works, then you do it. You're able to put you make sure you can negotiate that you can put your ads for your other books that are more profitable into the pages of the magazine they're licensing to you. Or
right.
You know what I'm saying? So if I've got Star Trek, I can advertise sludge in there.
Right.
And obviously you want to make as big a deal as possible throughout the book to try to get people to cross-pollinate.
Right.
Because, well, the other thing, too, it can do, especially if you're really small, if you've got a bunch of stores, there's 10,000, let's say there's 10,000 stores, but only half of them are stocking your product at all. If you suddenly get a license that they can't ignore, well, suddenly they got to start licensing your line. Now their customers are reading ads about your books that the store is not buying. So now they got to start buying those comics. And suddenly, whoosh, there could be a major upside, but it's about the money if you can get it to be about the money. But if it's break even, then you have to exploit all the crossover stuff. But it's terrible even for the artist because once the rights revert, they're not under any obligation to pay you royalties.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was going to say.
So when Dark Horse republished that Conan stuff and recolored it, they didn't send any money to John Buscema's estate.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did, but they weren't under any obligation to do so.
Right.
Because the Howard company or the Howard rights owner owned the rights to all the rights to those pages.
Well, so that makes sense on why Marvel, when they reacquired the Conan rights, that they were using Conan in everything. You know, Savage Avengers, his own Savage Tale, right?
Yeah, you want to you want to get as much mileage out of that stuff as you can, for sure.
Right. Interesting. Well, Dave, what are you doing these days?
Besides Geeky Tavern?
Yeah.
I am a software product coach.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Now I remember when you got that gig, right?
Yep.
So you're still doing that, and that is going well, but you're still like.
Yeah, I mean, you saw I was on at the beginning of this, and then I got off for a while and I came back on. It's because I had to do a product demo in the middle of your drawing.
Yeah. So
and now I'm talking to you during my lunch hour.
So you have a real job, and yet, like a crazy old man that you've become, you're still trying to figure out how you can get back into comics full time, aren't you? Isn't that really the truth? Admit it.
I would do it in a heartbeat if I thought I wouldn't go broke. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and isn't that's the key, right? Us trying to figure out how not to go broke.
Well, it's like the old joke. How do you make $1 million publishing comics? Well, first start with $2 million.
That's right. Well, I mean, when you break it down like you just have, it sort of explains why everybody is so focused on licensing, because that's where the money is, right? That's where you can actually maintain your publishing company, is by licensing your products out to other avenues where you can get other revenue streams coming in besides just comic sales.
Well, it's the big secret behind Disney. Think about it. Disney doesn't actually make any of them. They license almost everything that they do. And their licensing and their licensing department is where, I mean, it might not be true anymore, but it was 30 years ago. Almost all of Disney's profits could be traced back to selling crap with Mickey's picture on it and selling crap with Minnie's picture on it. And yeah, they were basically a licensing powerhouse.
And now they just bought everything, but they're still technically licensing it. They're licensing it from these sub companies they actually own anyway, but which is, I always find that humorous. We when I was doing I guess
they're just like Image. They want to make 100% of the money instead of 85% of the money.
Right, exactly. When we were doing Herculoids and the Johnny Quest stuff at DC, that was they had packaged the they wouldn't. I always thought this was funny because, well, first of all, going back farther than that, when I did Garbage Man first for DC, it was because Vertigo would not give Swamp Thing back to DC, so they could use Swamp Thing as part of their DCU line, right? And I just kind of laughed at that. I was like, well, you guys are the same company, just take it, you know, but it doesn't work that way.
No.
And when Dan DiDio licensed the Warner Brothers stuff, he couldn't just get the Hanna-Barbera stuff as what he wanted. They were packaged with the Looney Tunes stuff, right? And so so that was always the biggest stumbling block because Dan didn't think that the Looney Tunes stuff would sell, which he's right, it wouldn't. And that's why when they finally did the deal, that Looney Tunes stuff was, you know, they crossed it over with the DCU characters, right? All those mashups, right?
Yeah.
And which actually most of those sold pretty well, but then it pissed off Warner Brothers because they were misrepresenting the Looney Tunes characters, you know, at least in their purest form.
In their perception, you might have been peripherally damaging their ability to license those things out for, you know, kids' slippers and stuff.
Right, exactly. And so that's why that ended abruptly. But and it was kind of unfortunate that you have to kind of jump through certain hoops. You go, boy, I really want to do the Hanna-Barbera stuff, but I have no interest in Looney Tunes. You're like, well, then you're getting nothing, you know?
You get nothing.
Yeah, and you'll like it.
That's right.
Yeah, so licensing, I'm glad we had this conversation because licensing now sounds like a pain in the butt that I wouldn't even want to broach under any circumstances.
Oh, the horror stories just on the approval part would be enough to curl your hair.
Well, you know, I just contacted the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate about getting the literary rights to publish a John Carter novel, but then do it as an illustrated novel, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking back and forth, and I had a really hard time making the woman that I was dealing with understand what I was proposing, because she was saying, well, Dynamite owns the comic book rights. I said, I'm not talking about a comic book. I'm talking about publishing the book, you know, just republishing the book, but with illustrations in it, you know, and thinking about maybe crowdfunding, something like that. But it sort of, we were in conversation, and then she just quit. She said, well, I got to talk to so-and-so, and I never heard back from her. And then I quit chasing it because I got, you know, interested in other things. But now after talking to you, I'm thinking, how in the world could someone ever even afford to do something like that? Because you're taking an awful risk that you can actually sell enough copies of it to.
Right. And at some point, if you don't take care of the contract the right way, and it might be a deal breaker for them. You might not be able to sell it past a certain point.
Well, I remember
even if you wrote it, they could just sell it and print it.
I'm just talking about just taking the actual Edgar Rice Burroughs novel, not changing it.
Oh, I see.
Reprinting it, but with my illustrations, right?
Right.
But
So one illustration every 10 or 15 pages.
Right, like like the Doubleday books that
Yeah.
Frazetta did back
Yeah.
in the day. But it's interesting because I remember when I can't remember the
Well,
name.
they would own all that art after you were done.
Well, they'd own the copyright to the art, right?
Yeah, they would. Yeah, they wouldn't own. I mean, you're not going to send them the pages anyway, so do whatever the hell you want with them. You're going to send them electronically, but
Right. Yeah,
they would own all the printing rights to them, all the reproduction rights.
That's an interesting thing.
Technically, you couldn't even do a book that contained those illustrations, even if it was an anthology book or something.
Oh, that's right.
Even if you wanted to include them in a sketchbook or something, you couldn't do that without their permission.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember when I don't remember who the publisher was, but they did the Conan stuff that Mark Schultz did, and
Yep.
And I remember talking to somebody about how they just, they were these high-end, really beautiful books and collector's editions and stuff, and they were hundreds of dollars, but it was not worth the, they didn't get the money back out of it that they had hoped that they were going to.
Yeah, we're so self-possessed. I wasn't looking at the comments, and somebody reminded me what the book was that we published. It was called Scarlet and Gaslight. Thanks, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Raven Lewis, right? Raven, whoever you are. That was very nice. That was very nice of you to remind me of one of my best-selling books. What's wrong with me? I hate to break up the party, but I got to go grab something to eat before I go back to work.
Well, Dave, thanks for taking a few minutes and joining us and talking about the good old days and the future.
Yeah, that was fun.
Someday we'll actually maybe get this figured out and start.
Are you coming to San Diego in November?
I thought that got canceled.
No, I don't think so. I haven't heard.
I got sent something that said it was off.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll double check the website, but as of a week or so ago, it was still on.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, the one in November, like the 3-day show. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I had a miss. I had some.
There were definitely some rumors going around that they were going to cancel it, but I never got anything official. Not that they would necessarily tell me,
right?
Because that's not something I wouldn't be on that list.
Well, yeah, I hadn't planned on it because I didn't think it was existing. So, we shall see. How's
Okay,
that?
I gotta go.
Okay, Dave.
All right, thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Yep. Talk to you later. All right, that was Dave Ulbrich, who just dropped in with a little guest appearance there. I thought that was kind of nice. Got to talk about Malibu a little bit, which is always fun to kind of go back and fun in the sense that we can kind of revisit history and kind of get the inside story to some things that happened, but kind of sad at the same time because it didn't work out in the long run, obviously. Hyper Potato has a great suggestion, and I think this is what I think of your suggestion. So now that Dave's gone, we're back on track. Now you're on to something. Okay, well, Wizard Cons are, don't even get me started on that. Interesting. Jeff Potts says, in the book publishing area, ebooks have basically taken over everything along with self-publishing. It's essentially all online. I'm not a big, I'm still a guy, if I buy, I got to read a book. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't read a book online. It just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, Dave, that I didn't get to this while Ulbrich was still there, but I have Malibu books. I have my own books. I have like so many copies of Sledge Number 1. It's ridiculous. So anyways, I'm finishing up my sort of Kirby-esque version of Power Man. I want to throw a few bricks in here as he's breaking through. God, this is epic, man. We're pushing 3 hours on this show. It's funny how time flies when you start drawing and BSing, right? And it allows for me to just keep noodling on the same drawing over and over and over again until I get something But I got to draw some bricks, some stonework flying at you here as Luke Cage is busting through. You know, I've heard of this, actually, that you can go that route. And again, it's such a, things are difficult right now because, you know, if you've been in comics or illustrated stories or whatever for, you know, as long as I have and had an interest in them, and maybe, you know, a lot of you guys too, in terms of interest in it as a product, when you find that the avenues for getting that stuff out there become less and less, and it's not really being supported by younger generations because they've become accustomed to the electronic age, it's kind of depressing because you think, well, let's make a comic book, put it out there, and you know everything will work out, and it you know it doesn't a lot of the times. You know, you can't ignore the financial aspects of trying to put together a project, no matter how much you love it or love the format. Like I keep thinking, man, I would love to do a Treasury edition. You know, wouldn't that be cool? And we'd all sit around and go, yeah, that'd be cool, man. That'd be awesome. But then when you actually do it, you know, you lose your shirt because no one buys it, right? Because, well, we don't have any place to put it. It's too big. How do you market it? You know, it's kind of frightening to think that comics are possibly becoming a very niche market. I mean, more so than they have been in the past. Not that I'm, you know, trying to, you know, be a downer on this, because I think there's enough of an audience out there that we can still at least, you know, do stuff and break even on it. But man, there's a lot of work goes into. I don't know why I'm doing this in pencil when I could just be doing it in ink and saving myself some time. There's a lot of stuff that goes into, you know, producing a book and just, you know, just breaking even and getting enough people out there to buy it. You know, the easiest thing that people do is you go on social media and ask people, you know, would you buy this? Would you be interested in this? And you get a million people say yes, but then how many people actually pull the trigger when it's time to, you know, these are all the things I think about. It's kind of like, well, you know, that's why it's easy to work for, or easier for the concept of working for Marvel or DC or even a smaller publisher that's going to pay you up front because it takes sort of all the risk out of it. And when you're used to, how should we say, risk aversion, as long as someone like I have been in this industry, you know, to sit there and go, boy, I'm going to lay it all on the line here and go for this as a self-publishing venture. It's a scary proposition. Whereas when you're trying to break into the industry, oh my gosh, you know, you do it in a second because you're not making any money in the industry anyway. So you figure this is my way to break in and make it big or whatever. But your perspective on that changes when you're used to doing it a certain way for as long as I've been used to doing it. So you overthink everything and try to rationalize, well, you know, if I do this, can I really make money on it? Will I even break even? Am I going to be in the hole? You know, how am I going to pay for printing if I don't get, you know, X amount of people to support the project? And I mean, those are all the crazy things that go through my mind. And that's why it's been such a long haul for me to actually get off my butt and do a, you know, crowdfunded project. Because I could get publishers to publish, you know, some of the stuff I want to do, but there'd be no, you know, there's no real money up front in it. So you're basically working for free. But Dave and I, for years, have been talking about how can we start a company and actually make it work? How could we start a company and, you know, make a profit to the point where you could actually keep doing it, you know, paying your employees and keep producing books. You know, maybe we should be spending our effort trying to figure out ways to transition into a new audience. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't disagree with this, but I am, but I'm talking about traditional comics though. You know, I don't have, and that's another one of my problems is I don't have a real love for technology and digital reproduction of art. And I know that's what everybody does right now, right? It's all, you know, so much stuff is digital, and because it just makes sense. But you know, me doing this on a piece of paper instead of doing it on you know, a pad or a Cintiq or something, this is a drawing. I can do this with it, you know. I can frame it and put it on the wall. I can look at the, you know, if I'm a fan, I can look at the technique. I can appreciate the, you know, it's like getting an old comic book page, right? An original art, an old comic book page, and there's so much to be gained from that in just the experience of owning it or having it or holding it in your hands that is completely lost in a digital format. And it's hard for me because I wasn't, you know, obviously didn't grow up in a digital age. It's hard for me to accept that as a reasonable medium to work in. But it's inevitable because that's obviously where everything's going. You know, is there enough people that are still willing to buy a paper product that you can survive and keep this industry afloat long term? I don't know. Because I know that they've had, you know, guys at DC have told me this, that they got certain numbers they can get to digitally, and then they don't go beyond that. So there's a certain crowd out there that's totally all in on the digital comics, but it's not a growing number of people. There's a certain amount of people that want traditional comics, and there's a certain amount of people that are willing to go with the digital. And they're having trouble growing either one of those numbers. And I just think that, you know, unless we get this kind of nostalgia kind of circles back around, which inevitably it does in a lot of things, you know, we're reading and, you know, being creatively involved in your entertainment becomes a thing again. You know, it's hard to imagine that we're going to be able to sustain comics for, you know, decades to come. But this is, we're a society of convenience now, aren't we? Paulus Arts. I mean, isn't that, you know, aren't we becoming Wall-E? You know, I'm talking about the Pixar movie, of course. I mean, look at our phones, for crying out loud. You know, you don't even need a computer if you got a phone. Where phones just used to be for calling people. Now they're internet access. You play games on them. You can do all sorts of crap on them. And why would a kid pick up a comic book and read a comic book when he's got his iPhone? You know. And although, you know, those of us who are a little bit older can give perfectly reasonable reasons why a comic book is superior to a video game, or, you know, a video app, I guess you should say, on your phone, or even the experience of playing a video game, which is fun. It's a different thing, but it's something about, being involved and using part of your imagination in the reading of a comic or the experiencing of a comic that makes it special. The appreciation of the art form as well as getting the story. Those are special things that you get in a comic that you don't necessarily get, killing people in a video game. It's a different type of interaction, but it doesn't seem like it's one that is very popular. But like I said, earlier, we had people complaining that worked at Marvel in the 70s that they never get past the 80s because comics was a dying art form, and yet it just continues to linger on. And I agree with what Dave was saying. There's too much product out there. I do agree with that, because it's when you have a limited audience and you have tons of product, and especially that product's getting more and more expensive. Back when I was buying comics and they were 20 and 25 cents a piece, yeah, you could buy several books from several companies and it wasn't a big deal. But when you're spending $4 or $5 just for a book or more, how many books can you actually buy a month? And then it becomes a premium on how good those books actually are, because if you're going to spend that kind of money, man, you better be getting something good for your dollar. And then, as Dave also alluded to, I think, or maybe just came right out and said, was that, there's no standard for what's considered good anymore and what isn't considered good. It's all over the map. It's such a matter of taste. And there's so much, there's guys that couldn't make it at Marvel and DC that are producing books right now that are professional quality. That just how much the talent has grown in this industry, or people interested in getting in this industry, that it's really sort of, cluttering things up to a point that it makes it really difficult. You have to just sort of hit on something, that captures people's imagination more so than another product out there. Because if you're just going on, what looks professional, or there's a lot of stuff out there. There's garbage out there too, but there's a lot of professional looking stuff out there that's not being produced by Marvel or DC or any of these even the smaller companies like Dark Horse and Boom and things like that. There's crowdfunded projects out there that are by guys maybe you'd never heard of that are really pretty good looking books. So we're all sort of fighting for this very small audience, and it's a difficult proposition. And like anything else, I guess it comes down to promotion, right? Promotion, promotion, promotion. And that's why I do these live streams. Promotion, promotion, promotion. And you hope that what you're promoting obviously is, quality, or that people perceive it as being quality. Ah, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. There is Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. How about that? Michael, go ahead and email me or Facebook message me if you want this, and we will discuss terms. All right, so let me zoom out so you guys can see this whole thing. I've got all these notifications popping up. It's Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, folks. Now let me come back to my camera so that, hey, there I am. This actually is a better representation. See, the color on this is a little bit yellower. There you go. Hyper Kaiju says, looking good, Aaron. Thank you. Appreciate it. So there's a nice little Luke Cage thing going on there. And sort of a Kirby-esque, you know, kind of crouched down, coming at you sort of thing. This, as usual, was good fun. It was a blast to actually have Dave Ulbrich have a guest on. There's nothing more enjoyable than doing an unannounced live stream with an unannounced guest. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And of course, David Williams was popping in there, and I think Fragaboom showed up for a short period of time, as well as Andy Smith and some others. Let me remind all of you to tune in just a few hours. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be back on in 3 hours. On the Professionals, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern time. I believe Graham Nolan is hosting, so you want to check out his channel. And that's pretty much all I got for you today. I appreciate you guys stopping by, and some of you guys hung with me for a long time. I never imagined this would go 3 hours. You know, you start drawing, you start talking, and who knows what's going to happen. So anyway, thank you all for joining me. I don't know if I'm doing the Sunday show or not because it's Father's Day. I might, though, but I probably will know by Saturday. So I'll post something, obviously. And again, check out the Professionals tonight. And there you have it. Another last-second live stream. Thank you all for joining me. And we will catch you guys next time.